Hi there, welcome to Erisha EduSupport, an initiative taken by the Rana Group. I hope that all of you are doing quite well and you have been comfortable in looking at our past videos on GRE as an exam. We continue our journey with graduate record examination, concentrating now on the second section, which is quantitative reasoning. As we spoke last time, this section has various styles of questions, and today we are going to look at questions that talks about quantitative comparison. You will typically find 7 to 8 questions under quantitative comparison in every section, and if you have done a good practice around, then you should be able to solve each question between 60 to 90 seconds, while this is an average timing I'm talking about, because there would be some questions which can be done within 20 to 30 seconds, and there will be some questions which might take almost up to 120 seconds. So on an average, you can look into a 60 to 90 second per question time span. Now, what do we mean by quantitative comparison? So as the name says, it is about comparing two values given to you. So the style of the question is that you will be given two quantities, quantity A and quantity B. You got to compare these two quantities, and based on your comparison, you should determine one of the four options given to you. What are the options? The first option says that quantity A is greater. The second option says that the quantity B is greater. The third option says that the two quantities are equal, while the last option says that the relationship cannot be determined from the information given. Now, if I have to know what are the various ways in which I have to answer. So the first thing you have to be remember is you got to be very familiar with the answer choices, right? Quantitative comparison question always have same answer choices, the four options that we spoke about. So get to know them, especially the last one. The relationship cannot be determined from the information given. We have seen in quite some time that initially when people prepare and practice for these questions, most often they tend to answer every question to be the fourth option. Why? Because they wouldn't have done enough analysis and enough identifying enough ways of getting an answer. So never select this last option if it is clear that the values of the two quantities can, can be determined and can be compared. Also, if you determine that one quantity is greater than the other, make sure you carefully select the corresponding choice and don't reverse the two answer options, because one option says quantity A is greater and one option says quantity B is greater. Avoid unnecessary computations. Why do we tell this? Usually we tell this to students who have this habit of writing each and every step while solving a question, because that's how they have got used to it, that's how they have practiced. So you got to come out of that habit and try to avoid unnecessary computations. Simplify, right? Estimate, eliminate, and do the trial and error method to get your answers, the right answers for that particular question. Use alternative approaches is what we say. When it comes to geometrical figures and geometry-based questions, you got to understand that the geometry-based questions are not necessarily be drawn to scale. So just because two lines look equal doesn't mean that they are equal. You got to determine, you may want to redraw the figure based on those conditions and criteria given to you. You cannot change them, but the rest of them you can play around as long as you are keeping the basic concept and condition given in that particular question. And once you have done that, you can always examine the results and select the option. Plug in the numbers. One of a very important way of solving questions under GRE, especially in the quantitative section side. where you start placing numbers to see whether your expression, especially in the algebraic expression side, whether your expressions are giving you a consistent outcome. So we start placing numbers like 0, positive, negative, small numbers, large numbers, fractions, decimal. Obviously, we don't start putting everything in everywhere. We start using our smartness and our intelligence to plug in the numbers appropriately. And once I realized that, there is a consistency when my outcome, so if quantity A is always getting bigger than quantity B, then I go with the option. But if I find that in some values, quantity A is bigger, but in some other values, quantity B is bigger, then I will end up choosing the last option, that the relationship cannot be determined. Simplify your comparisons always. Whenever you have equations given to you, there are easier ways of simplifying them. So try to simplify them and then build your relationship among the quantities given to you. Let's understand all these methods in certain examples that we are going to look forward now. Now, a quantitative comparison looks similar to the one that is shown on the screen. You have quantity A, you have quantity B, and it says the least prime number greater than 24, and quantity B says they're the greatest prime number less than 28. Now, if you can recollect your prime numbers, the least number after 24, you know that 29, 31, and so on are the prime numbers. But since you are looking at the least prime number, you will choose 29. While when it comes to quantity B, you are looking for a prime number less than 28, and thus you list down prime numbers less than 28. So you will have a 23 coming into the picture, then you will have a 19 coming into picture, and so on, because you're now going in the decreasing order. But because they have asked the greatest prime number, you realize that the greatest prime number is 23, and thus quantity A is greater than quantity B. Now, this is one way. So when I'm practicing at home, when I'm practicing towards my GRE preparation, how do? I do an alternate approach too. So what's an alternate approach? Okay, so I look at quantity A and quantity B. Quantity A is talking about a number greater than 24, whereas quantity B is talking about a number less than 28. So what I'll do, I'll list down numbers which are greater than 24, but less than 28. That's 25, 26, 27. Right? Now, none of these numbers are prime, which means my B value is going to be lesser than the leftmost value here, and the A value will be greater than the rightmost value here. So thus, the quantity A is always going to be greater than the quantity B. So I will look at alternate way of recognizing values, because that is what is going to help me in the real-time exam. Let's look at one more. 54% of 360 and 150. Now, many of us will start doing 54% of 360, right? Canceling 0 and 0, because that's the easiest way that we have done. Well, you can do this. There is nothing wrong in it. But let me ask you this. If they have asked you 54% of 360, let me down to 50% of 360. We know 50% of 360 is nothing but half of the value. So what is half of 360? 1/8. Now, if half of 360 itself, that is 50% of 360 itself, is greater than 150, wouldn't 54% of 360 be greater than 150? Absolutely, yes, it will be, right? Because 54% is more than 50%. So which means quantity A is definitely going to be greater than quantity B, and I thus chose quantity A is greater, right? So that's one way. The other way is that because they're asking me 150, this can be slightly lengthier compared to what we did now, but I can look at, okay, now what are you comparing? You're comparing 54% of 360. So let me see, 150 is what percentage of 360, right? So what happens here? Now, rather than comparing value to value, I'm going to compare percentage to percentage, right? For 360 itself. So in the left-hand side, I have a 54% of 360. In right-hand side, I'm calculating what is 150 out of 360 as a percentage. right? So once I get that, it becomes easy for me to further compare A and B. So that's another alternate way. So every time you have something, try to bring an alternate way. I'm not saying that every equation will have an alternate way, but try to look at an alternate. Now let's look at this particular question, which is of geometry. And remember what we told about tips of answering for geometrical questions or figures involving geometry. Now, PQR is a triangle, right? And QS is a line drawn from the vertex Q onto the side PR. Now it says that PQ is equal to PR. Now, if the question is saying that PQ is equal to PR, right? It means that we are talking about an isosceles triangle, right? Absolutely. Now, I do not know about QR, number one. Number two is the QS. Now, if you look at naked eye, you will feel that, hey, PS and SR look same, right? But what is this QR? The QR is a line drawn from the vertex Q to the side PR. So if I have a triangle where I say that PR and QPQ are equal, and I'm drawing a line from Q all to the way for PR, where should this line come? Should it come on the center of the line PR? Not necessary, right? The line from Q can come anywhere on the side PR. So it can come closer to R or it can come closer to P. It can come anywhere. Means that I'm not sure whether this point S is closer to P or S is closer to R. So what can happen? What I have done, I have taken an image given by the geometrical figure given in the question, and I have redrawn it to my understanding, right? Where I have said that, look, S can be closer to R or S can be closer to P. I have not changed the basic criteria or condition given that PR is equal to PQ. That has remained the same. But now, can you tell me whether PS and SR, what is the comparison? You cannot tell me the comparison, right? So you know that PS and SR cannot be compared and thus the relation cannot be determined from the given information. So what we are doing here, we are taking the fact that geometric figures aren't necessarily drawn to scale. Now, let's look at this particular question, which says that compare quantity A and quantity B, where you got to compare X and Y. Now, you know that Y is 2x squared plus 7x minus 3. There are people who will solve this as a quadratic equation. But rather than solving this as a quadratic equation, let's understand this, right? Now, you know that X can be positive, X can be negative, or X can be 0, X can be negative, X can be positive. You can take minus 1, 1, or you can take minus 2 and plus 1, or whatever value you like, right? Now, what happens if X is 0? Then Y will become minus 3, negative, right? As soon as X is 0, Y is negative. Now, in this case, X is greater than Y. What happens when I place X as minus 1? Y will become 2 times of minus 1 square plus 7 times of minus 1 minus 3, right? So in this case, minus 1 square is plus 1, 2 into plus 1 is 2, 7 into minus 1 is minus 7, minus 3, that's going to be minus 8. Now again, X is greater than Y. Wow, so can I say that X is always going to be greater than Y? Because Y was minus 8 and X is minus 1. Remember, when it is negative, minus 1 is greater than minus 8. Well, X will be always greater than Y in that sense. Let's see. Let's place X as 1. What will Y become? 2 into 1 square plus 7 into 1 minus 3. That is 2 plus 7 minus 3. That's 9 minus 3. That is 6. Oh no. In this case, what happened? X became less than Y. So you see, depending on the values of X that we take, X is either going to be greater than Y or X is going to be less than Y. So what choice will you choose? Will you select? You will end up saying that the relationship cannot be determined from the information given, right? Now, you could have solved that by using the quadratic equation of 2x squared plus 7x minus 3 and factorizing them, but this would have been an easier way of doing it. Question given to you that, hey, y is greater than 4. So, which one is greater, the quantity A or the quantity B? Now, here is where we say that when you have two comparisons, especially in the algebraic expression, try to simplify them and then use your knowledge. So how will I simplify? So let me say I write quantity A and I write quantity B, right? And I'm supposed to put a sign here which can say greater than, less than, equal to, or can't be determined. Okay, so let me keep this space blank. Now, what is on the left-hand side? 3y plus 2 upon 5. And on the right-hand side, I have a y. Now, let me take y to the right-hand side, just like we do a simple, solving of equation. If we had an equal sign, what you would have done? Cross multiplied. So similarly, let's cross multiply. 3y plus 2, 5y. Now, if you had an equal sign, what you would have done? You would have taken a 3y to the right-hand side. So let me take 3y to the right-hand side. I will have 2 and 5y minus 3y, which is 2, 2y. Now, because 2 and 2 are the coefficient as a constant value of that, I can cancel them and I say 1 and a y. Now, I need to compare. So what does it mean? It means that I need to now compare 1 and the value y. Okay? Now, do we know the condition? The condition says that y is greater than 4. So if y is greater than 4, isn't y going to be always greater than 1? Yes. So between when I have to compare 1 and y, I can always say that 1 is definitely going to be less than y. So if the less than sign has to come in this space, then the less than sign has to come even in the original space, which means now I can say that the quantity B is greater than quantity A. Now here, if I had to start placing y value in such a way, as an assumption. So for example, let's say y value is 1, but it can't be 1 because y is greater than 4. So let's say y value is 5. Then quantity A would have been 3 into 5 plus 2 divided by 5, right? So what is happening is you are now, that is 15 plus 2 by 5, that's 17 by 5, obviously smaller than 5. So you will have to start placing value of y in various form to get a consistency that's much more time consuming. So I would rather do a simplification of my entire comparisons. I'm assuming that you guys are finding math now to be much more simpler than what you thought it really is. So we will come back in the next video and talk about the next style of question, which is multiple choice questions. And if you have any doubt, you are free to visit our website edusupport.in or drop an email or call to this number shown on the screen and get your doubts clarified. Signing off from this video, my name is Anand. I'm a chief trainer at Erisha, also a mentor for students who are preparing for various levels of competitive entrance examinations. I hope you enjoyed this entire video. We will come more with the rest. Stay tuned and have a great day ahead. Thank you.